Hello there, replay viewer. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for the replay on Catch. If you're viewing us on Catch right now, to all of our live viewers, I want to thank you so much for stopping in. What is that? Hetlim? Thank you so much for joining. And so we're going to give some time for everyone to get into the scope, and then I can get started here. For those of you who this may be your first time on our scope, we're Hamaji. We're a nonprofit organization outside of Houston, Texas. We support mental health family caregivers who are supporting their loved ones on their journey to mental health or on their journey to finding mental health. We are now December 2nd on our second day of the Hamaji Healing Families campaign, in which we are placing lots of emphasis on the family and how important it is to the mental health of our loved ones. And this week we're focusing on marriage. And so just wanted to be able to give everyone a chance to come on in. I had my head down, so if anyone came in and I didn't see you, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ignore you coming in. So last night my husband was supposed to join us, and he couldn't get one of his machines to calibrate. And so 6 hours away, he had to stay overnight. So today he was on his way home, and he calls me at about 2 o'clock and says, "You would never believe this. I got a blowout." Now, the blowout happens on a tire that we just bought last week before we went out of town. I'm just grateful that he's fine. But for those of you who are in the faith, you understand spiritual warfare, and so that's what I'm taking it as. We obviously are on the right track because we are meeting much adversity. But you know what? It goes on. The game goes on. And so my husband's on his way home. I told him not to worry about pulling over and trying to watch the scope. We'll have plenty of time. We have plenty of time in the rest of this month for him to participate. So I'm going to get started here. And tonight's topic we're talking about is mental health and marriage, healthy boundaries. If there's no stop sign, why pump your brakes, right? Okay, so lots of times in the life of a family caregiver, a mental health family caregiver, we are supporting a loved one who may be, at any given time, challenged emotionally, challenged physically, and mentally. So they could at any time require us to, fill in the gap for them if they're unable to, commit to, and this week we're talking in terms of spouses. And so if they're unable to commit to, parental duties, right? Other duties, household chore duties, and sometimes both people in the relationship are working. Wealth speaker, hi. Thank you for joining, Danielle. That's a blessing. Thank you. And so, at any given time, if there are two people working that are in the relationship, there is, probably chances are there are times when the other member in the relationship may have to, pick up on other household or domestic duties because the other partner is unable to do so, right? So, excuse me. During those times, as a family caregiver, you can pretty much understand that. You can say, okay, well, you know what? You're not having a good day, or, the last couple of days have been really rough for you, so I'll pick up the slack, right? I'll pick up the slack, right? And so then hi, Dr. Watkins. Thank you so much for joining. Any of you looking for a really good psychiatrist online on Periscope and on Twitter, please follow Dr. Watkins. She's really good. She's great. And you can find her at her website of yourmentalhealthfirst.com. But she's really great. And so, you can understand actually having to fill in the gap for that loved one, right? So picking up the kids. Hi. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have my airplane mode on right now, so my calls don't come through. So if they call right now, they'll go to voicemail, but I'll make sure to check after. And so, and thank you so much for that. And so we can understand, filling in the gap for our loved one when it comes to that. You're welcome. You're welcome, Dr. Watkins. And so we can understand filling in the gap for our loved one when they're having a difficult time. Maybe they may be suffering about a depression. Maybe they had a rough day at work and it was something that, required them to have their full-on gear on in terms of those of us in the mental health community, because I myself am a survivor of depression and anxiety. I understand what it's like to have to go into your workplace and play the game of having it all together when you are feeling like you're going to fall apart, right? And you're feeling like you just really want to go home, pull the covers over your head, but you have to keep going. And so we can understand when our loved one goes through a period like that where they may need a little more, understanding. They may need us to fill in the gap for them a little more. What we're talking about tonight is when we have a loved one who, even though they have a mental health condition, there are times when they are doing well and they're stabilized and they're able to pick up the slack, right? And so sometimes, you can have an instance where your loved one may tend to fall back from their duties, right? They may know that, oh, well, I can just say I'm not having a good day and, so-and-so will fill in for me. My loved one will fill in for me if I don't feel like doing that, right? And so they can kind of get to a place where it's easier not to show up, right? And so what happens to the family caregiver at that point is they continue to, assume other duties on top of their full-time job, on top of taking care of the children, on top of other domestic duties. There may be obligations with the children, like going to the school, like sports events, like, taking the children to the doctors for exams and physicals, like, being there for our parents and taking out, making sure we go and check on them and do what they need to do. And even so much as there have been caregivers that I've talked with that they're not only caring for their loved one, their mate, but they're also caring for their mate's parents, right? And so it gets to a point where, the mate has to be able to say, you know what, I'm feeling good this week, right? I can go ahead and pick up the kids this week. Why don't you take some time off and don't even come straight home? Go by the park, go for a walk, meet your girlfriend or meet your guy friends for happy hour, or, go for a movie with your friends. Let me take care of this, right? Because that's what marriage is about, a give and a take. When you have it where you as a family caregiver are always the one cleaning up the messes, always the one filling in the gaps, always the one, can you do this for me again today? I'm just not feeling it, right? And so what I wanted to come in and talk to you guys about today is being able to set boundaries, right? And I'm going to start reading from my notes here because I wrote notes because my husband, when you do get to see him on camera, he'll talk a little more than me. And so I may get, distracted. So I wrote notes so I can make little pencil marks whenever he comes in, and I'll know where to go back to. So I'm going to read from my notes. And so I said, when we have certain signs and signals to keep us all safe on the road. Oh, we all have certain signs and signals to keep us safe on the road, right? No right turn here, no right turn on red, no U-turn, 75 miles per hour here, in which in Texas that can mean 102, or get out the way. I call the speed limit here, get out the way. So anyway, whatever the case, we know pretty much what it is and what is allowed and what isn't allowed. In our lives, we must apply the same traffic principles. Slow down, construction ahead, no right turn here, stop. The problem many of us run into is we are robbed of those abilities early. Well-intended parents force us to go to people we didn't want to, or different various other accommodations that our parents can pass on to us, teaching us how to, you know, accommodate other people. Like, oh, well, I really like, I had a mom who was, she was the person who could never say no. So she would take on all her friends' things. She'd do stuff. She'd spend her weekend running, and she'd go and she'd have us with her, and she'd be taking care of her business, going and helping her friends. She was a sick friend over here. She ran over there, and she took them groceries, and she'd pack out groceries out of our house. And so that's how I grew up. I grew up being the give it all, give it all, give it all. And so those are learned behaviors. We pick those behaviors up from our parents. Oh, and I need to say this as a disclaimer. I forgot to say that. I'm a mental health family caregiver, and any information that I share here is information that I've learned through my journey as a mental health family caregiver. So it's not professional advice. It's not clinical advice. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. This is all personal experience. And so, I was saying those behaviors are learned behaviors, behaviors that we learn from our parents, right? And so as we move further down the road in life and encounter various personalities and even in our work life, we are groomed to be more passive. In fact, the more we wish to climb the ladder, the corporate ladders at work, the more willing we have to be to loosen our boundaries, right? We have to be willing to say, oh, well, you know what? I did have dinner with my spouse tonight, right? But that position is up, coming up, and so-and-so's moving to a new department. So maybe I'll stay and I'll work late tonight like they ask. And then it turns into, well, can you work late here? Or can you pick up so-and-so's, projects because they're out of the office this week? And so we learn through our life and through our life experiences to start modifying our needs and modifying our desires to fit others, right? To get what we want or to be accepted, right? For what's acceptable. And so eventually, if you don't set boundaries, you'll become a salaried slave working almost 80 hours a week, falling asleep on your laptop, with only you and your suit jacket to keep you warm. So we all know how that winds up, right? Well, that same principle applies in our personal lives. In our relationships, we negotiate boundaries early on. For us ladies, we relax on the boots in the floor, the underpants on the side of the hamper that didn't quite make it in, and then we also and going with us to the store with stains on the shirt, and because, it's just a little stain. So we start to negotiate, oh, well, it's not a big deal, right? We start to relax those boundaries that we set in place. You need to smell good when you see me. I need to be able to, you need to look right when we meet, right? And so those boundaries are relaxed. Or for the fellas, having your razors used in the shower, where we use them to shave our legs, makeup on the counter, our flat irons, and all of the sweet smelling hand soap, right? So all of these things are things that we start to relax our boundaries on, right? And so when we get to those points in our life, those are boundaries we don't really mind, right? We kind of learn to give and take with those. We kind of learn to accept our loved one for who they are. We start to relax the things that we, really were head on bent, that it has to be this way or no way, right? But as I mentioned, those are all the sweet, frilly, foo-foo ones, boundaries. But what happens when your mate pushes buttons? What happens when you're being taken advantage of? What happens when you're doing all of the giving and they are doing all of the taking? Oh, Lindsay, do me a favor. Click on my what do you call my scope, and see if it's active, because it just went blank. A big green flash, and now it says 0. Let me know if it's even up. It is? Okay, because it says 0. Okay. Yeah, I thought so. Okay, that's okay. I can keep going for the live viewers. I just wanted to make sure because I come on and I'll do a scope and then it'll have the viewers won't, show up on here. And then when I go out and do the replay, it'll come up and show me I have like 24 or 40 viewers on there. So just wanted to make sure it's working. I'll keep going so that when the replay comes up, all of you who are watching the replay can benefit. Okay? So, okay. So I was saying, those are the frilly foo-foo boundaries. But what happens when your mate pushes buttons? What happens when you're being taken advantage of? What happens when you're doing all of the giving and they are doing all of the taking, right? When you are being taken for granted or you're caregiving, in the caregiving, you're taking on all the load, the bulk of it, and you can wind up being bitter, angry, and resentful. Even worse is to be passive about it. And we all know that, that one person where you say, well, hey, so-and-so, I have all this stuff on my desk or whatever. Would you mind taking this project for me and helping me out? And that person may have too much, but instead of them saying, well, you know what, I really can't do that, right? They'll take it knowing that, there's potential that they won't be able to complete it, right? And so we don't want to be passive, take things and, oh, no, it's okay. But deep down inside, you really just don't want to do it, right? And so that can happen with us in a relationship, in our marriage, with our mate. Oh, well, can you take this or can you take that? Oh, well, yeah, I'll take it. Well, what's the matter? You don't feel like doing it? Well, no, I said I'll take it. What's the big deal? Right? So we can wind up bitter and we can wind up angry. So it's not to say there isn't a struggle. It's not to say that there isn't a struggle, and during the times when we, are taking on way too much or our loved one is, not standing in the gap even when they're feeling better, right? And so I wanted to give you 6 pointers that you can use, to help you to be able to set healthy boundaries for you and your loved one. So number 1 is to know what you want and to say so clearly and calmly. This should be done in a neutral setting with stable people, right? You don't want to have this conversation if your loved one is manic. You don't want to have this conversation if your loved one is in the middle of a depressive episode, right? Because that's really not going to be a time when everyone can contribute fully to that conversation. There's not really going to be a time where both of you are going to be heard, right? And so you want to do this at a time when it's, stable individuals. And you want to be in a neutral setting where it's you and that individual. You don't need an audience. You don't need, to do it in an open set. It needs to be in a neutral setting and stable individuals. You want to be able to, at that point, say what your needs are physically, mentally, and emotionally. What is it that you need? What is it that you're not getting that you desire? You have to be able to communicate that. And a lot of times people don't know what that is. So you need to do some soul searching. And I'll get to that in another point. It's another point I have here. So what makes you feel taken advantage of? Make sure to lead with, I feel like, right? And not, you make me feel like. Why? Because we are in control of our own feelings. No one can make us feel anything. How we respond to what is done to us is how we're feeling, right? It's all in how we respond to it. So that's number 1. Number 2 is know what you feel. Resentment and uneasiness can be 2 things that you can feel as a result of, your loved one not respecting your boundaries or just pushing and pushing and pushing to see just how much they can get out of you, right? And sometimes it's not intentional, but other times it's because our loved one who may be battling a mental health condition just doesn't want to push through. They don't want to do the extra work to be responsible for holding up their part of the relationship or the marriage, right? Okay. Tony Robbins used the technique of why, right? When he does his seminars, he asks the person, well, why do you feel that way? And he keeps asking them the why, because he said asking the right question gets you the answer. So he keeps going to the why. So we'll do an example here. Why do you feel the way? Each question with your ex. Well, I feel angry. So then it's why. Well, because I always pick up the kids. Well, why? Because I want some quiet time. Well, why? Because work is stressing me out. And so you keep going. This is how you're getting to the bottom of why you're feeling the way you're feeling. You want to keep, asking yourself the question until you get to the very surface question of why you're feeling the anger and resentment. And then once you do that, you can be honest with your loved one, with your mate, as to why you are feeling the way you're feeling. And then you can clearly communicate to them at that point what your need is. What can they do to, how can they modify their behavior or, whatever's going on so that it suits both of you, right? So number 3 is to accept that the other person may not like the new boundaries and may push back. You have to stand your ground because you deserve to be heard. A lot of times when someone has gotten comfortable with getting their way, not pulling their weight, not doing the work, it's easy, to, get relaxed in that environment because you don't have to do anything. Your loved one is doing everything for you. Well, when you, as the caregiver, start to set boundaries and say, hey, you're feeling better today, I think you should take on this chore. You're feeling better today, I think you should, go and pick the kids up. Or you should go and run the errands. Or you can go and pay bills today, right? Sometimes there's going to be pushback. What you have to remember is you have to keep your self-care and the way you feel at the front of your mind. Because it's not being unfair by asking them to carry the weight when they can. You understand? That's not unfair. That's doing a justice and a service to both you and them, because the sooner they get back to taking on their responsibilities and being fully active in, you guys' lives and in your children's lives and in your social lives, the more they have power and control over their recovery journey. The more invested they are in it, okay? And so number 4 is to remind yourself that a relationship reciprocates. We discussed yesterday to don't do the fairness trap. And don't do a fairness trap because it doesn't work. But you can ask your loved one to carry more of the load when they are well. Right? So it's not looking for the fairness trap. We're not looking for, okay, well, I did this for 3 months and now you're better. You're up and about now. Now you can do it for 3 months. It doesn't work that way. It's let's start now, right? Let's start now. You can help me. You can, start taking over some things and take some things off my plate and free me up a bit to be able to have some, me time, some quiet time, some downtime. So that's number 4. So number 5 is to remember you. That's why boundaries are necessary. They are there to protect you and to make sure you are being served as well as you're serving, right? That's not saying equal, but to make sure that at least when they are well, they are able to give back. They are able to put their portion into the work of the relationship and of responsibilities. If that means taking the initiative and drop the kids off at a friend's house or a family member's house and to get out and to have some time to do you, then do that. Your mental health counts just as much as your loved one's mental health, right? And so number 6 is if a loved one chooses not to be compliant and continues wreaking havoc on the family with no regard for anyone but themselves, sometimes you have to make the tough choice. I spoke to a family caregiver about 2 weeks ago that said they even had to move out for a while, and they got an apartment, and got a car and lived a separate life for almost a year before their loved one was able to fully realize that this was real and I need to get it together. And so that loved one actually went ahead, got into a treatment program, and was compliant before that caregiver went back and they started their life again together. So sometimes it takes tough love. So if your loved one behaves, if your loved one loves you, they will change. If they don't change, then you have to keep living. You have to keep doing what it is that is going to get you a quality of life. That may require you to go and get therapy for yourself, right? That may require you to continue on this journey alone until your loved one is ready to commit to a treatment plan that is going to help them to, live better, be responsible for their mental health, and contribute fully to their family. So I'll do a quick review. I'm not sure if we're still up because I keep seeing a little green flash. But I'll do a quick review of the 6 steps I said that you can use to make sure that you are setting healthy boundaries. Number 1 is to know what you want and to say so clearly and calmly. That's number 1. Number 2 is to know what you're feeling. Is it resentment? Is it anger? Is it an uneasiness? Is it loneliness? Whatever it is, know what you're feeling, because only then can you clearly communicate to your loved one what you need, right? And then number 3 is accept the other person may not like the new boundaries and may push back. Just accept that. That doesn't mean you have to change it. You still need to be focused on what your needs are as well, okay? And then number 4, remind yourself that a relationship reciprocates, right? So when your loved one is feeling good and they're stable, they can contribute to the family. They can contribute to the chores and other household and life duties, okay? Number 5 is remember you. Remember your self-care. If your loved one cannot commit to, standing in the gap and doing their part, you still need to take the breaks. You still need to have some time for yourself. So hire a sitter for your children if you have to, right? Put them with your family if you have to, but you have to carry on a social life for yourself outside of being a caregiver. You understand? Okay. And number 6, if a loved one chooses not to be compliant and continues wreaking havoc on the family with no regard for anyone but themselves, you have to make the tough choice. And whatever that tough choice is, that's different and unique for every individual family. Only you know what that is. It doesn't mean having to move out and give your loved one an opportunity to, get themselves together. I don't know. That's a call you have to make. Does it mean that your loved one needs to go until they can get themselves together? I don't know. That's a call you have to make individually with your family, right? So I hope you've learned something and found something valuable here. I hope this caught, because last night the other one that they cut off did not go into catch, and it didn't save itself to my phone either. So it was just in limbo. And so I really hope that this one is up for replay. If not, I'll come back and redo it. But thank you guys so much for staying through to the end of the broadcast. If you're watching this on replay here on Periscope, thank you, and we appreciate you. We hope to see you on one of our live broadcasts. If you're watching this live on the web, thank you so much. We hope that eventually you'll get the app and come into a live broadcast. We'd love to hear from you. I keep a pen and paper nearby because I enjoy learning from other family caregivers and survivors. And if you're watching on Catch, thank you so much for going into Catch and catching our replay. So we appreciate you, and I end my broadcast by saying, may God bless you real good. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next broadcast. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be there, and I'll announce the topic tomorrow just before I go on. Okay? Thank you, guys, and bye for now.